Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Income Gaming, Cheltenham's premier friendly local game store. Check the link in the description.
So I've recently been given this really wonderful bit of old Citadel terrain by Jeff of the KV Forge YouTube channel. He's not only that, he's also my next door neighbour. I'm going to pop a link in for his channel now, so make sure you go and check his channel out. Loads of fantastic terrain building stuff on there. And if you like this video, I'm sure you'll like his stuff.
If you saw my recent video on making a classic Warhammer table, you'll have seen some of this terrain before in the guise of hills. It looks a little bit plain there in its bare form in the rolling fields leading up to, why did they build a castle by a chaos shrine? But I still love these old pieces. I think they got lots of charm and you can do lots with them, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do in this video. Welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. Now this stuff is relatively hard wearing. It's high density foam of some kind, but if you snapped it over your knee it would definitely break apart. But this has survived for 30 plus years, so I think it's got some more life in it yet. Now most of the work I'm going to do is with an airbrush, so I'm going to cover my desk space with my old mat just to make sure my current mat doesn't get too messy. Whack down my lovely spinny table thing here, which is great for spinning something like this large when you're working on with an airbrush. Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Baron of Dice, premium wargaming dice. Over 500 styles, over 4,000 customer reviews. Welcome to the best dice on the planet. So first off, I'm going to use one of my favourite paints, and it's Contrast Garagax. So I've added this in my airbrush, and I've added a few drops of water just to help it flow. It really depends on the pigment level. Some contrast paints are thin enough, you just pop them straight in. Others, you just want a little bit of water to help it flow nicely through the airbrush and not clog up too much. Now what I'm doing here is focusing in the corners where the shadow would be. So I'm adding shadow, but I'm also adding grime at the same time. This isn't supposed to win any golden demons. This isn't supposed to look absolutely drop-dead gorgeous or amazing, but it's supposed to make the terrain look a little bit more weathered, a little bit more multi-tone and coloured rather than the bare sort of foam we've got here with a few bits of flog. I'm really tied in with my other terrain that I have on the table and in my wider collection. You'll see that I'm not only just focused around the edges on the inside, I'm doing the same outside as well, in between some of the larger cracks on the stone. If you've got the control with your airbrush, you can do that. And I also like to put it right around the edge of the terrain piece as well, because I find that helps it blend into the tabletop or mat as well. It just makes it look like a muddy shadowed area, and I think that just works a lot more. Decided to pick out a few little feature bricks here which are modelled on the piece itself, and then continuing around adding that layer around the bottom of the piece of terrain. The walls have a bit of a double layer, so I've added a little bit of a line in between those as well, just again giving it more definition. Continuing back inside, spinning it around, just adding more and more shadow as it goes, and I think already it's starting to come together and look like a better piece. I even added a few sort of streaks down the side as if the rainwater had washed earth, and again it just adds to it even more. Now I move swiftly on to Skeleton Horde. Now this is a lot lower in pigment, a lot thinner, and goes through the airbrush absolutely fine without any water. And I'm using this here just to add a further tone, which is a little bit lighter to the darker brown. So less shadowing here and more continuation of the colour, and just giving these stones a little bit of more variation as well. And again, just the real difference that makes, just adding a secondary colour here really makes the piece look a lot more realistic and a lot more interesting to look at. And much like the first colour, I continue my way around, adding a few streaks here and there, reinforcing where the darker Garagax sewer is. Now on to an army painter speed paint from the 2.0 range, and this is Gilly Dew, something I used recently in my Orc tutorial. And this is quite a sort of putrid green, it's got quite heavy yellow tones to it. And what I'm doing here again is adding some more little patches in different places, mostly to the Skeleton Horde, but sometimes overrunning a little bit, and definitely overrunning when there is some brown. A few little streaks and marks. Now it is quite bright, and we'll go back and darken it in a moment with another colour, but this just adds a nicer base layer. I also find it helps you add a little bit where the grass areas are. This is very old flock on there and it's looking pretty tired, and just adding a little bit of colour blends it into the rest of the miniature easier and also makes it a little bit more vibrant. This is that darker colour that I was talking about, and it's Gunner Camo, also from Army Painter Speed Paint. And I'm just using this first of all to reinforce where the lighter green is, maybe just a patch in the centre so it looks like it blends out to a lighter colour, but then also reinforcing the shadow as well, not putting it everywhere, giving it variation, making sure it's almost a bit random at times. But I also found it worked really well to add a little bit into those darker recesses where the Garagak sewer were, and it really just enforces that shadow even more, reinforces it and makes it a little bit darker, and gives it a feeling of a little bit of dampness there where mould and moss and dew and things would be, and I just really like the effect. Now I reached for the trusty model colour Deck Tan for a tiny bit of dry brushing. I didn't want to do too much. There's a lot of flat surfaces and I didn't want to look messy, but there are a few little bits of texture, little bits of gravel and things like that, and a few skulls, and I just found that this really helped bring them out and make them pop a little bit more. Very much into the final stages now. We're just brushing in some burnt umber pigment into the areas of rock and broken gravel that are on the miniature. I find this really helps add to the texture. That dryness of the pigment really just adds to the effect that you would have in those areas. Now, a lot of people ask me in the comments about this, and I do mention this quite a lot. I won't seal this pigment. If I do, it will completely change the colour and the texture that I want to, which is absolutely fine, but it will really reduce the effect of it. Because I'm brushing it into a very highly detailed area, the pigment sits in all those gaps and crevices, and I'll blow the excess off quite heavily. And unless you really get in there and rub it hard with your finger, it doesn't really come off. Now, obviously, if you're handling it, you might get the slightest bit on your finger, but I do this with all my terrain. As long as you put it in places that you're not going to be handling too much, it really doesn't cause the issue that people think it would. Now, this is Deer Armour FX Thick Mud, European Mud from Vallejo. This is more of an effect than a basing texture, and I've said this millions of times on millions of videos. I think it's probably part of a drinking bingo game. I know that Zenithal is one, and I wasn't going to mention that in this video, but I know that the people who do that will now have to drink. But this stuff is fantastic. It's really good little effect. It dries much lighter than when you first put it on, but it's not the same or as heavy as something like Sterling Mud, which will be very paint heavy. This is a lot lighter and just again adds a little bit more interest and a little bit more detail, and I find it's really fantastic just to add in top of tufts and on grass and things, so it looks like you've got mud showing through. So I mentioned tufts, and I'm going to add some here, just a couple of wild flowers. Thought it'd be really fitting that with this ruined Chaos Tower there may be some flowers growing up through the cracks, maybe to change what had been used for chaos rituals in the past to something a little bit more peaceful in the future. But we can't have too much peace, can we? So maybe someone's been using this still. Maybe there's a chaos worshipper or someone tainted in the nearby castle, because there's fresh blood stains on the edge of the altar here. The mystery continues. And that's it done. Took no time at all of this took less than an hour. It's going to take me longer to record the audio and edit the video together than actually painting this. And I just wanted to show you how easy it is to do. How easily you can spruce up old terrain that you find maybe on eBay or something, or unless you got super kind neighbours who have YouTube channels for terrain as well. This donation is incredibly generous, and he also gave me something else which will be appearing in a future video as well, and that's even more generous. But I'm really happy with the way this came out. I think I've tarted it up enough. It's been a very short period of time doing it, but I'm really happy with it. To add to my collection, it will definitely be used in games and in photography and things, and you'll see it on the channel many times in the future. And if you're into your chaos stuff, there is a miniature for that. I painted one for a tutorial a few months back, but also with the new Dark Oath stuff coming out and me being headlong into Warhammer the Old World, maybe there'll be a project that comes along a little bit closer. Maybe something needs to be put on square basis. Maybe it will get me out of a little hole for an army that I need rather quickly. Some of you may guess what I'm alluding to, others you won't have a clue. If you're a member of the Discord, you may find out sooner than others. And with that smooth segue to talking about Discord, if you're interested in joining the channel's Discord, where you can talk about any game system under the sun, any painting or hobby tips. It's super friendly. There is a link in the video description. As always, I do also have a Patreon if you'd like to support the channel a little bit further. The link is there for that as well. Lots of cool things that you can sign up for there. And as always, if you just like the video and subscribe to the channel and do all those normal things, I would be super grateful if you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.